What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another NBA Rundown brought to you courtesy of Run Pure Sports and Run Pure Bets. I'm joined today by Hoop. And Hoop, we were talking about how tough today's slate is. The COVID has hit them hard, but not only that, just the wear and tear injuries of a lot of these top players. So, it's funny when I started doing this, right? People go, you're gambling for a living, and I'm like, it's not really gambling, once you've identified a mathematical edge, it's more like playing the stock market, things like that, right? Feels like gambling these last couple of days, right? As these injury news have really caught me by surprise on some of the games. But what's your take on the current state of the NBA?
Yeah, I mean the running joke in like the DFS circles from years ago were okay. You didn't see anything like this until March. A lot of teams, okay, they realize their season's over. They're kind of gearing up for the playoffs. So the news was hectic, nonstop. Now it's like literally just all year round, every day. We were talking about it in the opening. Like at the bare minimum, like there's no reason for these teams to be playing back to backs. Like just figure out a way, shorten the schedule, whatever it may be, eliminate the back-to-backs, spread out the schedule a little bit more. We have the COVID stuff, obviously. I mean, if they're going to continue to test these guys and have these strict protocols in place, you're going to have a lot of guys missing games, which is what we're seeing now. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So I'm hoping there's some tweak to something here at some point, maybe going into the new year. But man, it's a disaster, and you pull up this injury, and like I said, it's even beyond the COVID stuff too. Just a ton of injuries, a ton of guys just out for various reasons. It's wild out there. I mean, it makes it very complicated, not only for sports betting but DFS as well. But you can find some edges though too. Like you really can. I mean, along the way, it wasn't like a slam dunk play yesterday, but when all those Nets guys got ruled out, I mean, the play ended up squeaking by. I thought it was crazy that the Nets were still favored by 4. I mean, I put a decent chunk on the Raptors. Didn't get lucky, and they ended up covering. I thought they were going to win it outright. But if you stay on top of your stuff, if you can beat these books to the punch, I mean, you have a upper hand in some situations.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it hurts me more just from a content-based perspective, right? Because usually I try and turn the articles, try and turn them in overnight. I mean, that's almost impossible. Yeah. And then we even pushed the show back, right? Remember last year we were doing this at 1 p.m. Eastern. We said, hey, we'll push it back a couple hours as close, to the hardwood show that we can get to try to not get sniped by this injury news. You're right. It's definitely still beatable. But from a content perspective, it's hard to give out the best information, but we're here, and that's what we're going to attempt to do. So let us jump right into this slate. And like I said, there's questions abound. So if we're not giving out a ton of picks or a ton of plays here, I think everybody will understand why. The first game, the Atlanta Hawks are -8 heading to Orlando to take on the Magic. This one, at least we have a clear injury report, right? We can handicap this one properly, right? We know Bogdanovich is out. Fultz is still out, although I've heard he's looked really good. So that's going to be a nice little twist there. Each one more out as well. Only Mo Bamba questionable for Orlando. And I'll be honest, he doesn't move the needle that much compared to some of the other players that we will be discussing. So, hey, we'll start us off on a good note. We can actually handicap this one correctly. The Atlanta Hawks, they're an interesting team this year. And Trae Young's even mentioned, after their experience last year, that they don't really care about the regular season. I'm a little worried. They haven't accomplished enough, right? If Milwaukee wants to say that, that's fine, right? They did it 3 years in a row. They climbed to the mountaintop. They're wearing the ring, right? But you made an Eastern Conference Finals where we've talked about it. They kind of ran pure to get there, right? It wasn't the toughest path to make, and now you're going to start writing off the regular season. That worries me from the fact that they could be forming some bad habits, and I'm not confident in this team to flip the switch like I would be like a Milwaukee, a Philadelphia, or a Brooklyn here. I lean towards the Orlando side, but this Orlando team is so bad, it's always hard to take them. But I don't trust Atlanta yet, so I'm leaning towards taking the points, but I didn't bet it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd probably be on the opposite. I just have such a hard time just investing any sort of dollars into like these crappy, just like dead teams like the Orlando Magic, and it is a bigger number. But man, I could never pull the trigger. So if I was like forced to make a play here, I'd take the Hawks. I mean, I don't feel comfortable about it, but I would lean the Hawks. DFS wise, Trae Young has been playing phenomenal basketball now for it's been about 3 weeks, just a lot of minutes and big time production. He's been over 50 fantasy points in 4 straight games. He's had some 60 fantasy point games, kind of back to Trey that we saw like 2 years ago when he kind of broke into the scene. Last year was a little down year production wise because of the roster and how it was shaped. They still have a few injuries right now, and Bogdanovich out is big for him. I think he's a guy that if you're playing tournaments, large field tournaments, definitely get over the field on Trae Young. I mean, has some big upside, and we have some studs that are out tonight too. So the path to being for him to be on the optimal lineups tonight is there because of those guys being out and how well he's playing. Probably the only play though for me in this game, Kevin Huerter has a pretty good price tag on FanDuel. He'll play a lot of minutes, production up and down. I mean, he's been playing mid-30s in terms of minutes. That's pretty much what you want for a guy like him. Can knock down some threes, and you hope he picks up some peripherals along the way. But for me, the real play here is Trae Young. Price tag's up, which might keep some people off him, but he's playing phenomenal basketball.
Yeah, a couple other players I wanted to ask you about. Cole Anthony, right? He was in a lot of optimals there at the beginning of the season. He's come back to earth. What are your thoughts on him? And then maybe a little value in Cam Reddish. I played him a couple weeks at only 3,800. He can fall a lot if I do try and spend up. What are your thoughts on Cole Anthony and Cam Reddish tonight?
Yeah, Cam Reddish is definitely a guy I think you can keep in the player pool as a value option. 28 minutes last game. If he's going to get 28 minutes at his current price tag, definitely a guy to keep in mind. Now, I mean, we're going to have a ton of value on the slate and probably even more as the slate goes along. So, I wouldn't consider him like a building block type play, but definitely got to keep in your player pool. Cole Anthony, price is just fully adjusted for me. I mean, it was fun to kind of ride him when he went from like 5K and then he was in the 6K range, still too cheap. And then the 7K, now he's up to mid 8s, 8.4K. You need like 40 some fantasy points from him. I don't want to rely on Cole Anthony to get 40 consistently. Now he has proven that he's capable of doing it, but it's not going to be a play for me tonight on this slate, full slate here.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting case study, right, in the ebbs and the flows of the DFS market, right? How we can love these guys, and I mean, he can be on the court, right? Because I love to use the cores to make a play, especially if I don't have time to watch the show, right? And he'll be in the court for 3 weeks, and then, might as well put him on a milk carton. I don't think I've seen his name on there for a couple weeks. So it seems like the price is right on Cole Anthony. But hey, guys, if you're looking for some value, I think that Cam Reddish could be your guy tonight. Here's a game that I liked a little more until I got some news here, and I'm waiting on some more news as well. The Houston Rockets take on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, these are two of the best teams against the spread over the past month. And in fact, I was joking with my buddies, said you can't talk bad about these teams. They paid my mortgage the last month. I mean, what great performances from both teams. Now they face off, and Houston's up to 9.5. I really like this a lot. And then Christian Wood got ruled out. I don't know how I feel about it, right? So they're already down Kevin Porter and Jalen Green, but I already knew that going in, right? That was already baked into the original 8.5. And Eric Gordon being out really bothers me because if you watched Hoop, so they've started out 1-16, right? Silas started to feel the heat, and then it was just like, okay, we're not just going pure development in there. Let's get Gordon in there to be the leader. And I felt that really spearheaded their win streak and then their great ATS streak as well. So, I mean, I like the Rockets. Those two injuries worry me. Of course, Evan Mobley's questionable. That could upset everything. I still kind of like taking the Rockets in the points here. What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's a tough spot because, you got two teams that have treated us well. I mean, I think one of the biggest bets I made this season was on the Rockets, was against the Thunder. I think we did the show together.
And they were only -2.
Yeah. And we kind of talked through that one, like, wow, this just like doesn't make sense. They're hot right now, winning games, and the Thunder not very good. And I think, like I said, that's probably the biggest bet I made this season. So they've treated us well. And the Cavs, remember early on in the season, they're plus money, plus points every single night, no matter who they face. And they were winning ball games. And so, both these teams have treated me well. It's tough, though, man, on this Rocket side. No Wood, no Porter Jr., and no Gordon. It does scare me. I probably would not bet this one. I'd probably just kind of stay away. But there are options for fantasy purposes tonight because the Rockets are so thin. Jayshawn Tate, 5.8K, I think, is a phenomenal play. Actually, probably one of the better mid-tier value plays on the slate. He's showing that he's capable of leading this offense, and it's not just scoring. When he gets going, it's rebounds, assists, steals, blocks. So he contributes kind of across the board. So I really like him at 5.8K. KJ Martin's going to have to play a much bigger role here as well. 3.6K. I think he's one of the better value plays on the slate as it stands now. I mean, this most likely going to change. We're going to get more news before lock and probably throughout the slate. But those two stand out as my two favorite plays in this game. Armani Brooks has been playing well, but the price is now starting to adjust a little bit. He's up to 5.5K, so no longer a value price tag. So I'd really be focused on Tate and KJ Martin as two of my favorite plays. And then, Tice too. I think you can look at Tice, 3.3K. He's going to have to play pretty big minutes here. So a lot of love on the Rockets side, fantasy-wise. Cavs, not too much, unless Mobley's out. I mean, if Mobley's out, then I think, Kevin Love, Jared Allen would obviously get a big boost. You could take a look at some of these other guys if he's ruled out. But as it stands now, Rocket side is nice for fantasy purposes.
How about my favorite rookie, Alperen Şengün here? Do you think that he jumps in and will he pop in any of your projections, you think? Because he should take a majority of those Wood minutes, right? And with all these other players out, he should have a big role in the offense.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention him. Real strong play, real strong. At,
okay, cool.
4.5K. You look at his recent production. He's been limited minutes. I mean, 15 minutes, 22, 25 minutes, 30, 38, and 23 fantasy points. So he's showing production in limited time. He's going to get more time today. Very strong play.
So, who, and you and I are the same way, we do this and we enjoy the money, but we love the NBA and we'd be watching regardless. Right. Yep. And I was listening to the podcast, the Dunker Spot, and that's Nikias Duncan and Steve Jones. And those are two real good X's and O's guys, and they have a real fun pod. Right. And something they said just really stood out to me that I thought was fun. I thought I would share. They said, Alperen Şengün isn't the best passer in the NBA, but he's the most audacious passer, right? I mean, it's just so fun to watch and some of the stuff he tries. So, maybe some of those highlights are also sticking in my head on why I want to roster him. But regardless, it's good to hear that he's going to give me some value as well because he's one of my favorites. The Miami Heat are out to plus 7.5 heading to Philadelphia to take on the 76ers with the total of 204. That line moves tells me that they expect Joel Embiid to play. I know he did go through shoot around today. And I'll tell you what, Hoop, I was pissed on Monday, right? Because Bobby Gomes comes on Monday and he did what you're doing, right? And he gave me all the value, right? So it allowed me to spend up for Giannis and Embiid, right? And so I'm checking, right? And a lot of the value was in the, for me, the 4 o'clock, right? The early games. I go, man, these guys are doing good. Bobby's gave me some great info, right? And then they scratched Embiid, and I'm still not over it, just because. I mean, we have rules around this.
That's just a bullshit one. Like after the game locks, like literally like out of nowhere, just that's the stuff. It's just not right. And then the NBA put some things in place, or at least tried to. I know they do it every year. They try to improve the injury reporting and try to like find these teams for inaccurate reporting. Like, come on, like that's just.
And I didn't see a fine at all. I didn't see one mention of it.
No, they're not. Of course not. Like they claim they're going to enforce all this crap, and then they never do. It's like, come on, you got to a little bit. I mean, just think of the industry. I mean, the sports betting, fantasy. I mean, the industry is just growing year after year, and like the least you can do is just like give us. They knew obviously there was a chance that Embiid was not going to play in that game. I still just find it so hard to believe that out of nowhere, what they say, hurt his hip or something, right?
Yeah, it was just something bad. I mean, so today he's on the injury report, right? So that's fair. So now it's buyer beware, right? But I was really disappointed, and number one that it happened, and then number two, Adam Silver's response was absolutely nothing. I mean, the guy's got to step up and do something. I'm older. David Stern would not allow this.
It's the worst sport for injury report. I just don't get it because like the NFL has it figured out. Like you don't
because the NFL will fine you. If you try to pull this in the NFL, Roger Goodell will fine you. And if you did it multiple times, like Philly has, because Philly's a repeat offender here, they would take away a draft pick. I mean, it might be a 6th or 7th round, but it would be something to let you know this is unacceptable.
So the NFL rosters, they have 53 guys on an NFL roster. An hour and a half before the game starts, they have to say who's in and who's out.
46 that play.
Yes.
Yeah, because you have 53 but 46 stress. Yeah.
Yes, you have to provide that information an hour and a half before live. The NBA has 15 guys. A lot of them have less, 12, whatever it may be. Yeah. Like, how hard is it? If the NFL can do it with 50 players, why can't the NBA do it with 12 to 15 guys on the roster? Like, I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And the bigger these industries get, the more bullshit it is when you see it happen. And like every year they pretend like they're going to fix it, and then they just don't do shit about it. It's super frustrating.
Yeah, and for me, like I said, frustrating from a content, and then also, as a pregame NBA bettor, one of the things I loved about the NBA was it's almost like, how the NFL market matures over the course of a week.
Yeah.
The NBA is like that, like fast forward, right? Because it's just one night. The lines usually come out, in the evening when the games are ending, and then, they mature while I sleep and I wake up and I get to see the moves. Hoop, only one line moved overnight today. You know what that's telling me? A lot of guys like me that like hitting these early lines, we've checked out. We're saying no, we're not going to do it. And you know what's funny is I don't think the sports books even care. So what are they saying? Oh, great. Like the sharpest, most informed bettors aren't betting into our market. Like, I don't think they care. So I don't know if it's going to change, but looking into tonight. So Embiid's questionable. Obviously that's a big deal. I guess with the line move, we can assume that he plays. I kind of like the Heat here regardless. Obviously, Embiid's not 100%. We know with him missing time, his condition's already questionable in the first place. And I've seen so many games, right, where he's got 50 fantasy points going into the fourth and he finishes with 62. And I think that's also it's a byproduct of his poor conditioning here. So whenever I can grab a lot of points going against Philadelphia, I'm happy to do it. And whenever Philadelphia is up double digits going into the fourth quarter, I'm happy to take their opponents live. So I know Miami's decimated as well here, but I think I'm going to grab the points with a well-conditioned team going against a team whose condition I don't trust. What are your thoughts?
Oh gosh, I don't know. It's tough because Tyler. I mean, Tyler Hero's out. He hasn't been playing all that great, but he's out. I mean, that's just it. You just look at this roster, and it's a ton of responsibility for Kyle Lowry.
Like Kyle Lowry season, right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot. And a good price tag on FanDuel. He's only $7K on FanDuel. That kind of stands out. The other guy, fantasy-wise, Max Struss, has shown some upside, 3.1K. So those are a couple guys that I'm looking at. A lot of these guys, though, are priced up because Jimmy Butler's been out and the role has already grown. Guys like Duncan Robinson at 4-4, so hit or miss. PJ Tucker's been kind of going off, but I'm just not into PJ Tucker. And then on the 76ers side, there's going to be just better spots fantasy-wise. Embiid's a little dinged up. Tobias Harris doesn't really appeal to me all that much. So really looking at
let's talk about Tobias Harris real quick. Wouldn't you say, I was thinking about it, he's been one of the biggest disappointments so far this season, right? Yep. You would think Simmons is out, increased usage, here's your chance to prove it. I haven't seen it, right? I mean, he's looking to be every bit the number 3 and not worth the max contract. And I know you guys haven't been playing him in fantasy, but that's got to be a big issue for Philadelphia looking towards their playoff prospects. Wouldn't you agree?
Super reliable guy last year, like fantasy-wise, production-wise. Like if Simmons or Embiid were out, you just went to Tobias Harris because you knew you were going to get probably like 40 fantasy points. Just not aggressive this year. I don't know. Maybe it is because of that contract. I have no idea, but like just not the same guy. 7.4K last year without Simmons. Tobias Harris was like an auto play. This year, it's like, man, I really don't want anything to do with the guy, to be honest. So not the greatest game fantasy wise. I'd probably stay away. I don't know. The Heat they just scare me. I've seen so many duds with Jimmy Butler out. Like with Butler in, I think they're a contender. With Butler out, it's rough going. So I'd stay away from it. But Kyle Lowry on FanDuel and then Max Struss, only 3.1K on DK. I think those prices stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't played that NBA 2K game for a while, but like Butler seems like he's the guy that he's got like the badge that gives everyone on the team more stamina and intensity, right?
Yeah.
They do look a little flat with him out. Kyle Lowry season, let's see how he fares against, it's actually his hometown team, right? And they're in Philadelphia. So it is kind of a home game of sorts for Kyle Lowry. Lean Miami towards the points, but like you brought up so many reasons, I think there's better spots for us to bet. Another one, we're guessing on injury news, but we're used to it with the Los Angeles Lakers, who are -1.5, heading to Dallas to take on the Mavericks, +1.5. Thank you, Dallas, for actually letting us know that your star was out so we can at least handicap the game properly from the Dallas perspective. Willie Cauley-Stein out as well. Doesn't mean a lot to me. Sterling Brown questionable. Doesn't mean a lot to me. On the other side, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are once again probable. I expect them both to play. So I guess we'll handicap this as if they don't play. But I mean, I guess they're doing us the favor of, it's not unexpected if they were to sit out of nowhere. But I mean, these guys are probable every single night.
Yeah. I really like actually what I've seen out of LeBron lately. It's a guy you can tell he's playing pissed off, and you want LeBron teams when he's playing pissed off. And I'm not a LeBron fan by any means. I cannot stand the guy. I'm not a LeBron guy, but this is the time when you want to back the Lakers this is the time you want to back LeBron teams when he's playing and he's playing aggressive and he's playing pissed off. I think that's the case right now. I think they've realized at this point the Russell Westbrook thing was just an awful decision. We all knew that. I mean, I like bringing him. It's just not a good fit whatsoever, and you're kind of seeing it play out on the court. But that being said, the ball's in LeBron James' hands more, which is what this team needs. So I think they began to turn a corner here. Listen, if you watch these shows, you know I'm the biggest Dallas Mavericks hater in terms of betting. You are as well. I mean, me and you both, we love picking on the Mavs. Love the Lakers here. I mean, love the Lakers. I bet it. I'm going to bet it again. I think they pound this Mavericks team at the hands of LeBron James here. I really think you could see this. I don't think the Lakers are going to be a contender when it's all said and done, but they're going to get into the playoffs. LeBron James, these are the spots you want to back LeBron James type team. So I'm on the Lakers here. DFS wise, not really interested, especially on the Lakers side. I'm not, when all three of these guys in, I'm not going to pay the full price tag on any of them. If I was going to go anywhere, it'd probably just be Anthony Davis. He's 10-4. I think you can definitely give him a look. On the Mavericks side, Jalen Brunson, I'll continue to play with Luka. The price has come up a little bit, but he has legit 40, 50 fantasy point upside when Luka's out. And then Porzingis has been playing really well from a fantasy perspective. Put up 52 fantasy points in only 24 minutes. Could have some trouble here in this matchup. So really the guy I like the most would be Brunson, but I love the Lakers minus whatever it is, 1.5, 2. I think they pound this team.
Yeah, Jonathan Nelson, if you are watching, this segment is for you because I completely agree. And I had written about this game, Hoop, and I had to kind of guess, but I guessed that Anthony Davis was going to play, right? Yeah. And then I looked at how this Mavericks team plays without Luka in there, right? And Porzingis has done well, and I think this is fun for us, right, as part of the Rempure team, because I think that Porzingis is one of the most controversial players, right? When I watch the hardwood shows, it seems like some of you guys really like to roster him, and some of you guys are like, over my dead body, like, it takes a 3-game slate with 1,000 injuries for you guys to roster him. But I would admit that he's played well lately, right? This is probably the best he's played in a Dallas uniform, right? The best he's looked since New York. But a lot of times, right, he's doing it against guys that are 6'8" and 6'9", right? And he's shooting
right over him. It's a bad matchup for him.
It's a bad matchup.
This is really bad
is going to shut him down.
Yeah.
And I also wrote today, right, Anthony Davis, because Lakers fans are so down on him, right? They're so down on him, right? And you know what that tells me? They're only watching one side of the court. Because Anthony Davis has been holding this defense together single-handedly. The guy's contested the most threes of any Laker. That's bad. When your power forwards contested the most threes, no, that should be a guard or a small forward, right?
Yeah.
He's also had the most rim contests. He's covered the most space on any defensive end, and then they're getting on him for not being there on offense. And I'm like, guys, he's holding this defense together single-handedly. Like, Kyle Kuzma's not here anymore. I wasn't a big Kuzma guy, but he did his job on the defensive end. I thought Kentavious Caldwell-Pope was a good defender, right? And Harrell at least did some of what that role was, right? So they're missing those 3 guys. I think AD's kind of soaked it all up on his own end. Regardless, my point is this is actually one of my favorite plays, and I hate to give it out because if one of those 2 is ruled out right between now and the time they tip, I'll be throwing more stuff around the house.
They've been pretty good for the most part with their injury reporting. Like if they say a guy is probable for the most part, he's played, and I think Anthony Davis was questionable and they switched him to probable, right?
Right, he's got upgraded because they went through shoot around today too. So
I think it's pretty safe to say both these guys do play. And it's nice, 7:30 Eastern game. I mean, for DFS purposes, if you were concerned about that, we'd probably have the news before the slate locks either way. So I'm all in on the Lakers here. Love it.
Yeah, Jonathan Nelson, I hope you enjoyed that segment. The New Orleans Pelicans are -5. They're headed to Oklahoma City to take on the Thunder. I'll be honest, Hoop, I kind of skipped over this game, but not much injury news, so I guess we can cap it properly. Lou Dort is out, but we know that he's out. Pelicans are starting to get back to full strength of whatever this team is going to be, because I'm sure you heard the news, right? The Zion's out even longer. And,
seeing those pictures of poor Zion at the stadium, he's got to weigh 350.
Yeah, let's get him out there on the Saints, man. I think he could be one of the best tight ends in the NFL, but he does not look like a basketball player right now. Be interesting to see when he gets back. I'm not high on this Pelicans team at all, right? I think they really made the mistake in switching Lonzo for Devontae. Poor Brandon Ingram out there toiling all by himself. Valanciunas is having a great year, really showing everything that he can do. But I feel that they were counting on some of these younger players to step up. Kira Lewis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jackson Hayes, right? I haven't really seen it from any of them, and I think that's the reason that they've been so bad this year. On the other side, OKC's pretty much the only team that's just like, okay, we're full out tanking. Right. I mean, they've traded away everybody. Anybody that plays good, they either get traded or benched. Poor Shea to be stuck in that situation. I didn't really know what to make of this game. I don't trust my numbers on this game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be investing dollars in a Pelicans Thunder game if I'm in bet. I mean, what is there here? I mean, what's here? Who the hell knows? Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess, yeah, the Pelicans win this game. Do they win by 5? I have no idea. Like, I just don't know. I mean, there's already enough uncertainty, like in the NBA, in terms of like who's going to play, who's going to sit, and I don't want to have to deal with like these teams and the motivation and all that. So likely off of this altogether. DFS wise, I mean, you have Dort out. Kenrich Williams is kind of popping in some projection models. I don't really want to play Kenrich Williams. Like, I don't really want to play any Thunders guys when SGA's in there, and he's going to be in. So pretty much a full fade for me here. And then, yeah, your point about Alexander Walker and some of these young guys, promising start to the year for especially like Alexander Walker. Like, he looked really good to start the season, and then just completely fell off the cliff here. So just not a good game, and one on one just kind of cross off and move on.
Yeah, and it sucks because we talked about it before it went on. A lot of these guys, this should be their sophomore or junior year, right? I mean, and so we have a tendency to write them off, and then they're not even that bad. Do we have a Timberwolves game on the schedule tonight? Because I think that's a perfect example. Yeah, we do. So I'll kind of pick that one up later when we get to there, and I'll kind of use that example of us writing players off, and then they end up being pretty darn good. The Indiana Pacers will be our next game. They're headed to Milwaukee. Once again, we're waiting on news. So we know that Giannis is out. He's got COVID. He'll be out for a little while. The big news that I'm waiting on, though, is Chris Middleton. Chris Middleton's questionable. I don't know. So I don't like the Pacers at all. And hey, we'll take a quick detour. Did you read the article about Rick Carlisle today and why Luka wanted him gone?
Luka wanted him gone, right? But didn't like say it, but he really did. He was like working behind the scenes to get him out of there.
Well, yeah, and so the thing was, it wasn't the way that he treated Luka. He treated Luka really well. Luka didn't like the way that he treated the other players, namely Dennis Smith Jr. And there was another guy, I can't remember his name. It's like Majeri, that was another player that he played with at Real Madrid. And he said he just didn't like the way that Carlisle did. And then Dennis Smith Jr. actually quote tweeted the article and said, hey, this is completely accurate, and it's actually worse. He's like, this isn't even half of the story.
Carlisle just seems like one of those guys where the game is kind of past him.
It's completely passed him by.
Yeah. He's a legend in the eye, like, from 10, 15 years ago, on top of the game, innovative, but it's just like his time is done. Like, he's not the coach that he once was, and like, that's okay. Like, it's a different era now. The game's being played differently. Like, some of these coaches, you can just tell they can't get out of their old mindset. Like, they can't adapt to the new game. He's just one of those guys.
I mean, it's hard if something's worked for you for 25 years and made you millions of dollars. It's hard to just be like, no, that sucks, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. But it sucks because I'm bringing all this up because if both those guys sit, I mean, isn't the Pacers the right side here? As much as I've been loath to kind of back them here, I mean, they're in Milwaukee, but if it's just Drew Holiday and Pat Connaughton and Bobby Portis, I mean, I would think that LeVert, Brogdon, Sabonis, and Turner might have enough to take care of those guys. Let's assume Middleton's out. And let's say, so we get the news, Middleton sits. Would you agree with me to jump in on the Pacers at -2?
Kind of like the Pacers either way, to be honest. They've been playing good basketball. I think they've won like 4 out of 5 games. They hung in there against the Warriors They're just playing better all around. And I think a lot of it can be attributed to Karis LeVert finally looking healthy out there, finally looking good, taking a bigger role with this team. I like the Pacers, I think, either way, regardless of whether or not Chris Middleton is in or out. Now, you bet this now, and it's -2. If Middleton's out, you're going to get probably a couple, maybe 1.5 free points. I don't know how much it's going to move if he's ruled out, but I think there's a decent chance he does sit. And then you're talking about all backups for the most part in Drew versus this Pacers starting lineup who have a pretty damn good team. They have some good individual pieces. So give me the Pacers here for sure. Fantasy-wise, a lot depends on the Chris Middleton. We obviously know that we already have.
Let's say he's out, because I think it's easy to fade this game if he's in, right?
Yeah.
So if he's out, who's the value for the people?
Well, first off, Drew Holiday becomes probably a lock on the slate, 7.5K. You even have to look at Bobby Portis at 7.1, Connaughton, Grayson Allen. So, I mean, either way, you have Giannis out, which is huge. I mean, the probably most productive fantasy guy in the NBA. He's already out, so you're going to want to consider some bucks. Now, they're all really good plays as is right now, and if Middleton plays, he's a really good play too. But once Middleton comes out, if Middleton is ruled out, then you have Giannis and Middleton out, you're probably playing at a minimum $3 in your lineups tonight, potentially $4. It's just the dream spot where you have the two studs out. They're at home, very thin team. So all really good plays. I'd probably play Drew regardless. I think Drew is really good, strong play tonight without Giannis. But like I said, if you add on Chris Middleton out too, you're going to want $3 to $4 in most of your lineups tonight.
All right, so Bobby Portis. So this is one of the things, right? We talk about the prices adjusting. I'm getting sticker shock there. Can I really press Bobby Portis at 7.1K? Talk me into it, Hoop.
Yeah, I think so, because you're going to see at least 30 minutes without Giannis. I mean, just think about all the rebounds that Giannis kind of not rips away, but gets instead of Portis. This is a double-double guy. He can knock down threes. He can get you blocks. Very aggressive guy when he's out there, which is what you want. He's going to have to play 30-some minutes in a close game. Yeah, it's not a comfortable price point, but I think it's the right play. I think it's the right play for sure.
All right, and how about one? So, who takes these minutes? I see Jordan Nwora here. I remember he was good earlier when they were all hurt, but then he was recently sent to the G League. Is he popping in any projections, or is he not 100%?
Yeah, kind of tough read on that situation just because, he wasn't with the team, hasn't been playing minutes, kind of out of the rotation. I don't know. Is George Hill, is he back today? That was the other guy that was.
Let me check on Hill. I see Hill. I see Hill listed as available.
Okay, so I don't know. It's just tough to trust a guy that's only been playing less than 10 minutes when he's with the team to assume he gets this big role. I'd be focused on the other guys like Grayson Allen, Connaughton, Giannis, who they love to play. Probably focus more on those. But, Nwora, I think in tournaments is a guy to definitely keep in there for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he talk about ways to get different, right? I don't know if I can do it if I'm only doing a couple entries, but I think if you do a bunch, he could really be a guy that sinks or swims your lineup. The Charlotte Hornets are +3 heading to San Antonio to take on the Spurs. Spurs -3. What do we got here on this one? Because I saw that those guys were off the COVID list, but it still says out for me as far as LaMelo Ball and Ish Smith. Mason Plumlee is probable. Jalen McDaniels is in. On the Spurs side, only Lonnie Walker is out. I like the Spurs in this game. This Charlotte team, they already had weaknesses and they're missing basically, they're 2 point guards, right? And LaMelo and Ish Smith, of course, Terry Rozier runs the point as well, but it's just you're losing versatility and you're also losing the bench minutes because Rozier's got to hit the bench at some point here. Spurs teams full health, probably not a lot of interest in DFS at a full health Spurs team on this slate here. But I like the Spurs as a side. This is actually one of the ones I feel a little more confident about because I don't think that DeJounte Murray is going to get scratched right before start, right? So I like the Spurs here. What are your thoughts?
With you on the Spurs. I think the Spurs are the play in this game. Fantasy-wise, it's pretty simple. I mean, you have the Hornets where they're now starting to get healthy, but they're all priced like they were with all these guys out. You still have Miles Bridges at 8.1K. We have Kelly Oubre at 8.2K. Cody Martin, 6.4K. So they're still priced like the whole team's out, but the whole team's not out. They're starting to get healthy. So I think it's a great spot to avoid for DFS. Spurs already a difficult team for fantasy purposes. Now they're also at elevated price tag. You have DeJounte Murray, who's at 10.3K. Phenomenal season. I mean, probably one of the more improved players, I'd say, from last year. Just a phenomenal season, but tough to pay the 10.3 for him. Derek White has had some big games, but 7.2K. Pirtle, love Pirtle, but 7K for Pirtle. I can't do that. Keldon Johnson, I think, is maybe a little bit interesting, like a last guy in, not like a building block type thing, but not a great game here for fantasy purposes by any means.
All right. The Minnesota Timberwolves are +4 heading to Denver to take on the Nuggets. What is the news we're waiting on here? D'Angelo Russell, questionable. And I think he means so much to this team, right? And Hoop, I was using him as my example earlier of when we write these guys off, right? Like, we can't say Nickeil Alexander-Walker or Kira Lewis will never be good because D'Angelo Russell was terrible for about 4 years straight, right? And you saw the flashes like you're seeing with Walker. But now, I mean, he's make or break on whether or not I've been on this team. And it's so funny because he was so bad 2 years ago with the Warriors on defense. And now he's actually getting there and he's making a difference. So I think he's a great example that we never just want to pigeonhole these guys or just stick to our original takes off film, that we watched 2 years ago, that these guys can improve, they can get better. And maybe, especially the ones with dedication and work ethic, right? We can't write them off. If Russell plays, I would take the Timberwolves here. If he's out, I don't care about Barton or Gordon. I don't see any way how they keep pace with the Nuggets as long as Jokic is on the floor. So this game to me is completely dependent on Russell's status. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I mean, I just have a hard time betting against the Nuggets. It's like a bias of mine. I really like their squad. I really like Jokic, so I can never talk myself into betting against them. And that's just something I'm fine with. So I would not – I'm not saying I like the Nuggets in the spot, but I'm not going to take the Timberwolves either. Russell, he's another guy. It's just like a thorn in my side fantasy-wise. Like so many times in the past, we've just seen him come out so flat and just have these stinker games. But we haven't seen that lately from him. Like he's been pretty damn consistent fantasy-wise. But the price is up there, 8.4K. You are paying a premium for him at 8.4, Edwards at 8.3, of Towns at 10.2. They're all just priced up there. Jokic, I think, is a guy that I'm just going to continue to play. I mean, the upside is just absolutely massive. I think it's a good matchup against Towns. Back to back. I mean, look, you look at the game log, 72, 75, 73 fantasy points in 3 out of his last 4 games. Just absolutely incredible what this guy's doing right now. Just incredible. You have to just continue to play him fantasy-wise. 12.2K, still too cheap for what you're getting on. I mean, the last game, I believe, was like a blowout, right? He only played 30 minutes. He missed probably 4 to 5 minutes a run and had 73 fantasy points. Like, just incredible producer. So Jokic to me is a guy that I want to be way overweight on. Cash games, an absolute lock. You just play this guy. I mean, just the highest floor in the NBA and the highest ceiling too. So love Jokic. So it's really Jokic and no one else really for me in this game.
All right. The Washington Wizards are -2.5 heading to Sacramento to take on the Kings. So not overnight moves, but the Wizards have been taking money. Is that because Kuzma is he was supposed to be out. Now he's going to play. He can't be worth that much. Rashawn Holmes is still doubtful. This team isn't very good without him. They're also the Kings are on the dreaded first game home from a road trip, right? Which a lot of times we treat like a road game when it comes to fatigue. Fading the Kings went well for me last week, right? Got lucky when they played Charlotte, right? But Cleveland was an easy win. Toronto was an easy win, right? I mean, just no sweat. They were down by 20-something at the end at halftime. Now I'm a little worried with the Washington team that's lost 4 of its last 5 and doesn't seem to have the same luster that they did earlier in the year. I still lean Washington because I don't understand what's going on with this King squad, but would it be surprising me if this was the night that they kind of played up to their potential and got the win? It would not. I lean the Wizards, but I don't love it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's two difficult teams right here. I mean, like you said, the Wizards were playing better early on, kind of slowed down a little bit. I love betting against the Kings. Don't get me wrong; it's
Yeah.
been very, very profitable to bet against your Kings. And same for my home team. It's easy to bet against the Pistons and feel good about it, but I don't feel great about it here. I'm not going to bet this game. And honestly, fantasy wise, it's not a great game either. I mean, the Wizards talk about it all season long. They are just a team that's tough when they're at full strength. They're at full strength now. I just don't want anything to do with them. Kuzma was questionable if he were to sit. Maybe we have a couple plays here, but he's going to play. And then the Kings side, for fantasy purposes, who the hell knows what you're going to get? Like, honestly, who knows? So much inconsistency, so much up and down. It's just a bad situation. So despite the big total, I mean, it's a 225 total. Close spread too. I mean, that's typically spots we like for DFS. I'm gonna be fading this one.
Yeah, and my only real thought from DFS, like you said earlier, not a building block, but if you fell on Bagley and Holmes is out, I don't think I'd hate it, right? Because I think you do have some upside there, and I think he'd at least get you to 20.
It seems like they're trying to feature because what they talked about trading him, so they're incentivized to get him some run. Like they want to get him out there, and he would be a good fit somewhere. I mean, that's one of the biggest mysteries to me this season. Like, why did his role like disappear to start the season? I mean,
that was obviously between him and Walton, right?
Yeah,
because as soon as Gentry came in, he's the only one that's really got a bump.
Yeah, just does. I mean, he was like a super promising guy, showed like a lot of upside last season. Like, why just completely bury this guy? And I think a team's going to be lucky to pick him up. I mean, he could definitely contribute off the bench for a contender, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if he gets to a good team with a good culture, it seems like, obviously I don't like him because of a lot of the stuff that's gone on in Sacramento. And of course, we'll never forgive him for not being Luka. With that being said, man, he just seems like he's a good kid in a bad situation. And I think that if he got to, I listen to all these podcasts, right? Still only at one speed, right? I'm not up to your level yet.
You're not a 1.5er?
Yeah, no, I tried. It was a little too much for me. But Hollinger and Duncan's another one I like, right? And they did their organizational rankings, and they're ranking the front offices. And that's interesting because Hollinger used to work in the Memphis front office. So some of them, he treaded lightly, but you could tell he'd actually, dealt with the teams and was going on personal experience. He put the Kings at 30, right? And I couldn't disagree, right? Just the dysfunctionalness going on in this franchise. So I personally, I don't like Bagley just for some of the antics of his father and how he's treated this town. But at the same time, I will like to see him get a fresh start. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was successful in a better run organization. The Los Angeles Clippers plus 9.5 head into Utah to take on the Jazz. So this line moved. And I don't know if it's money or news because my numbers say take the Jazz regardless. If Paul George is out, you got to really like the Jazz. But here's my concern, the matchup, right? I mean, we saw Ty Lue just carve apart that defense with the small ball lineup last season. What's to prevent him from doing it again here? Even if he doesn't get the victory, all he's got to do is keep it, as a single-digit game, and you get the cover. So I haven't gotten involved yet. If Paul George is out, I assume this line moves, but then I'd be safe taking the Jazz, even if we move to 11. As it's saying, my numbers say take the Jazz, but I'm worried because of what I saw in the playoffs. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm going anywhere, it's going to be with the Jazz here at home. You got that potential baked-in upside of Paul George sitting. Didn't play last game, officially listed as questionable. What's his right elbow injury? So, I don't know. I mean, no confidence, but I would lean the Jazz here at home. Fantasy-wise, great game to just like pretend like it doesn't exist.
What if Paul George is out? We got to get some Clippers in, right?
Yeah, Paul George is out. That does change things, obviously. I think Terrence Mann's a good play. The problem is, though, like these guys, their prices came up because of how well they performed last game with Paul George out. So the prices came up, and now the matchup's like much worse. But you'd still look to, I think, Marcus Morris, 5.4K, looked really good last game, and then Terrence Mann, 5.3. This is a late game, though, obviously. It's 10 p.m. Eastern. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room. I would not build lineups waiting for the Paul George news. I think we already have good value. You don't need to do it. But if you have options late and Paul George is out, you can definitely look to some of these guys.
What about everybody's favorite weirdo, Reggie Jackson at 6'8", if Paul George sits?
Oh, I mean, he was kind of a disappointment. It just seems like he's like hard capped at like low 30s in terms of fantasy points. Like he has not had many like big games this year when Paul George is out, and you kind of assume that he would. So price is up, tougher matchup. I'd be fine like not playing him even if George is out.
And our favorite constitutional enthusiast, we the people, says Utah blows the Clippers out with or without PG.
Yeah, very possible. I'm sure.
It's hard. Yeah. It's hard to argue the way that the Jazz have been playing as of late. The last game on the slate, Memphis Grizzlies are -2 heading to Portland to take on the Trailblazers. Trailblazers +2. This opened right around a pick. The market moved it to 2.5. A little buyback on the Blazers here. I backed the Blazers last night, and I regretted it. I mean. By halftime, I knew I was lost. Like, there was no chance. And, I'm a big Dame guy, right? I love Damian Lillard, right? He's from Oakland, right? Northern California kid. I like his game. And, I felt that he was underrated for years. And you know how much it pained me to just watch him get outplayed by Chris Paul, because I'm not a Chris Paul fan, but watching the game objectively, I mean, Chris Paul was a much better basketball player last night. Now they have a back-to-back going against a Memphis team that, hey, I mean, this team plays hard, and Portland appears to have checked out here. Robert Covington has to be one of the most because it wasn't a high-profile one, but in hindsight, 2 first-round picks for the performance he's getting, that's absolutely terrible. Powell and Lillard, as hard as they might try, they simply just don't have the defensive chops. I think Nurkic has slowed down a little. He seems a little late on his rotations. He can still give you those highlight blocks, but he also seems to be a little late sometimes as well. And like I talked about Anthony Davis, right? That's how I feel Larry Nance is out there, right? Just trying to save everybody's mistakes and be the one guy that's doing the right thing. Like, regardless, it's almost like when your parents tell you, right? Even when everything's going wrong, be the person that does the right thing, right? Larry Nance is the guy listening to his parents, because he's the only one out there really playing with pride and respect on the defensive end. I mean, Portland's pretty good at home, so would I be surprised, if they turn it around and finally lived up to their potential tonight? No, but until I see it, I'm going to continue to go against them, even without John Morant. I like the Memphis Grizzlies here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love Memphis here. I mean, the overtime game last night for Portland, Memphis been playing well, even without John Morant. They're going to play tough. And Portland it's just not going to be their year. I mean, it's just clearly not going to be their year. Just too much for Lillard to do here. So give me Memphis for sure. Fantasy wise, not the best spot. I think Larry Nance is interesting at 4-6. I don't want to, if I'm paying for a stud, I don't want it to be Lillard on a back-to-back. Yeah, I mean, to me, it's Memphis plus the 3 or 2.5, whatever it is, and not much else.
I don't think Lillard's 100%. And maybe I'm just a Lillard fan or whatever.
He's not there. He's not there mentally either. He's not in it with this team like he's been in the past. I mean, it's just, you can just tell the body language, everything. It's just not. It's not there.
And supposedly these guys aren't responding well to Billups either. I think Billups has got that confrontational Rick Carlisle style of coaching. And boy, I'll tell you what, if I'm Terry Stotts' agent watching this Blazer season, right, my asking price is going up, right? Because this guy held this team together for years, and they look terrible without him. And let's be honest, I mean, they have dealt with injuries, but not much has changed. Obviously, Lillard isn't playing the same, but he's not 100%. But if you're that dependent on one player, right? We watch these other teams, right? When one guy goes down, they can still get it done. Really. I think there's 3 teams that really need to blow everything up: the Pacers, the Blazers, and the Kings. Right? We've seen these cores. We've done it for years. We know what the ceilings are, and I'd love to see some of these players in new locations.
Portland would be foolish to not blow it up, like them for sure, because they have pieces that are big time assets, and they're not necessarily super young either. Like, they'd get a lot for Lillard and CJ McCollum if they wanted,
and even Nurkic.
And Nurkic, they're, to me, they would be dumb to not to blow this thing up.
Yeah, I agree. And if you look at, so I'm so jealous as a Kings fan, right? Look at what Houston did just with one trade of Harden. Now, obviously, it's gonna be a couple more years of pain.
Yeah,
but I'd much more enjoy watching that product, even if they have a worse 1-loss record with a bunch of young guys who are out there flossing, showing their skills, fighting for minutes, than the Kings, which is a bunch of veterans who know that they're not very good. They're already on their last contract. A lot of them, like Harrison Barnes, isn't getting another big contract, right? Buddy Hield's not getting another big contract, right? So they're just kind of going through the motions. I'm for all for blowing this up. I mean, I'd be more excited as a Rockets fan than I am as a Kings fan, and they were in the Western Conference Finals 3 years ago, and now that's that. So, anyways, it's tough to do any more DFS information without getting the news. So I applaud you for taking a stab there and helping give the people some building blocks when we're starting these lineups. But today's the day more than ever than you'll want to be tuned into the final countdown. And of course, to watch the final countdown, you need to become a member of Run Pure Sports. So head on over to runpuresports.com. Use the promo code GETBETS. You'll get access to my plays, Tyler's plays, JJ's plays, the Sports Keg, Score with D. We all got them out there on the spreadsheet. Get access to the Discord and, of course, the live content. So make sure you're taking advantage of that. Hoop, it's time for the best bets. What is your best bet of the day, side total prop?
Yeah, if you've watched this whole show, I mean, I think it's pretty clear where I'm going. I'm going with the Lakers tonight. I think they pound the Mavericks. You got, pissed off LeBron James. As I said, not a fan of LeBron James, but when he's playing basketball with a chip on his shoulder and he's mad and frustrated, that's when you want to back his teams, and he's kind of playing like that right now. Give me the Lakers -2. Some spots I see it's -1.5. DK has it at -1.5. I just bet it again during the show. One of my favorite plays in a while here, the Lakers to pound the Mavericks.
All right. Give me the San Antonio Spurs -3. They've been at home for a while. They're rested. They are full strength going against the Charlotte team that's kind of weak in the middle. And if anyone knows how to take advantage of those defensive deficiency, it's Popovich. And I can also trust that team to give me a strong defensive effort night in and night out, because if you're not trying, Pop sends you to the bench, and that's right. A young guy can't do that, but when you have the resume of Popovich, you can do that stuff, and that's one of the advantages he has. So I agree with you, though. I really like that Lakers play as well. So give me the Lakers. We also like the Spurs, and that is it. Hoop, do you want to let everybody know, find the rest of your content on Run Pure Sports this week?
Yeah, we've got our NBA shows going every day, 4:45 Eastern, the NBA Hardwood, and then, like Spread said, Up to Lock show, usually some combination of JSU, Big T, Holden, AP comes on there sometimes, DC. So that takes you right up to lock, covering all the news that breaks. And if you're following the NBA closely, you know that it's a lot of news that breaks up until that
tonight,
until lock. Yeah. Got all our NFL content and everything coming up, which that's becoming increasingly difficult too with all the injury news in the NFL as well. But come check us out at runpuresports.com.
All right. And just a reminder, guys, programming note, remember we go 3:30 Eastern every day except for Thursday. Thursday we go 2:30 Eastern, and that's because JSU will begin the showdown slate around 4 p.m. Eastern. So he's kind enough to come in, talk some NBA with us. And if you guys haven't checked those shows out, I mean, those shows, that's the closest that we get to doing a Run Pure podcast, because he and I will go all over the place, especially because, you and I, today we got to get through 12 games. We don't have as much time. Those 3 games, those 4-game slates, we have plenty of times for detours. So we have a lot of fun. So make sure you check that out. But remember, we start an hour early. And, of course, that's to accommodate, the showdown slate. And that showdown slate NFL show goes straight into the hardwood show, which goes straight into the final countdown. So that means starting at 2:30 Eastern, we will have you covered until the games tip, until the games kick, right? I mean, I was just thinking, man, if I had an office job, I mean, this Run Pure's got you covered like the same way that the old, local sports radio station would. You can just listen to it all day long. So we will be back tomorrow with JSU. Hoop, I wanted to thank you for joining me. Good luck navigating the DFS streets tonight, right? There's going to be cars crashing and muggings all over the place, but I'm sure you do well. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Reminder, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, share it with your friends. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Run Pure.